Welcome to 11 Yards Podcast presented by Legit Football. My name is Anthony Wayner, producer of 30 Minutes of Football, and I'm joined here with Jimmy Ray from at NFL_stats on Twitter, where we talk numbers and stats and all things football. Jimmy, how are you doing? Ready to talk some numbers?
Let's do it, man. We had a great Thanksgiving, week 12. Thanksgiving feels like a week ago already. I guess it has been a week almost, but feels like forever ago. Yeah, I'm excited.
So first, as always, we're going to begin with the week leaders of week 12. It was a very exciting, very exciting week. There were a lot of overtime games, a lot of very close games, a lot of spreads were covered. It was exciting. I think it was there are a couple upsets, the Jaguars and Ravens. I predicted the Jaguars to win, and everyone laughed at me, and I was right. So,
that was a good prediction. Honestly, I don't think a lot of people foresaw it, but with the way the Ravens offense has been playing, and Jaguars have been all over the place, but Trevor Lawrence has been he's been looking better this year overall, I think. So I'm excited to see his progression. They really went for it in the offseason with some of the wide receiver help, especially with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has been a sleeper in fantasy this year. He's been playing really well. I don't think he's been getting enough credit. So.
Yeah, and Marvin with that last touchdown was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Getting the knee down, making sure he was in the end zone. That catch was just amazing.
I don't know if I'm just ignorant in the fact that I just kept watching and I couldn't foresee it being a touchdown. I'm not sure exactly the rules on that, but it looked like his leg came down and got that one in, and then that one hit out of bounds before the other one ever touched the ground.
It did look like his thigh might have hit the end zone
before
it bounced. I don't know. It was very hard to tell. I was actually watching it on a bar TV, so I was watching it from a distance, so I couldn't really see it very close. So yeah, let's get into it. That's probably one of the more exciting games this week. But yeah, leading passing this week was Mac Jones. This feels weird. Like, I'm not used to this. Mac Jones is usually very unproductive, but in his loss at Minnesota on Thursday, he threw for 28 completions, 382 yards, 2 touchdowns, and got sacked 3 times for 119.8 rating.
Yeah, Mac Jones balled out. I don't think anybody would have. I don't know what his over-under was for passing yardage, but I'm sure it was a lot lower than 300, especially 382. I don't know if that's the most passing yards in a game in his career. It's probably around there, I'm sure, but something to think about. So that's a really good game from him, even though they did pull out the loss. But the Vikings defense have been kind of absent. So yeah.
Oh yeah. And against a bad Vegas team, which they lost against, Geno Smith threw for 27 completions, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 3 times, and lost a fumble for 106.6 rating. Geno Smith has been very efficient this year, especially against bad teams. He's easily just airing it out. The defense couldn't let up, so you can't really put this game on Geno because, as you can see, statistically, he did fine. I know he did throw that interception, but the 2 touchdowns were he had pretty good.
Yeah, he had some questionable plays here and there, but overall, I don't think he had a bad game, and I mean, they put up a bunch of points, so I don't think Geno Smith was a problem here. It's interesting that the top 2 players in passing yardage did pull out the loss. So I guess when you're coming back and have to have a shootout, that's what's going to happen. So
yeah, that's a good point. The last 3, Trevor Lawrence with his win against Baltimore, we were just talking about that, 3 touchdowns and 321 yards. And then Patrick Mahomes, which is 4th, which usually he's up in the 1st or 2nd spot, but he was 4th against the Rams, which a lot of these yards were to get their lead, and then they kind of just ran the clock out. So that was a lot of yards that Patrick Mahomes could have got, but with the 26-10 win, you can't blame Patrick for only getting 320 yards and 1 touchdown.
No, yeah, I mean, he does. You do what you need to do to pull out wins. And shout out to Mike White down at the bottom. He has another 3 touchdown game. He has 2 of his 4 starts for the Jets. He's had 3+ passing touchdowns. Zach Wilson has never had that. So that just shows what he can do against obviously not a great Bears defense, losing Roquan Smith, trading away him during the season. That wasn't going to help their defense. They know it's going to be bad this year. Would Zach Wilson have scored 3 touchdowns? I don't know, since he hasn't yet in his career, but he probably would have looked all right. But Mike White kind of brings something out of the wide receivers, and he'll have the job until he proves otherwise. So
yeah, it is right here on paper that Mike White deserves that starting job. I know you're against a broken Chicago team, but you're still playing a professional defense, so it's not easy. So on to rushing for this week. Josh Jacobs first place with his win 40-34 at Seattle. 33 carries for 229 yards, a 6.9 average, and 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs has shown up this year, and I am broken because I actually picked Chase Edmonds over Josh Jacobs in August, and I'm regretting that decision every day. I lose sleep at night because watching Josh Jacobs have a career year when I could have picked him in fantasy, it blows my mind. But I mean, good for him. He's good for like DS if you play FanDuel or DraftKings or anything. He's a reliable guy to have because Derek Carr just is having issues, but he just hands it off to Josh Jacobs and he scores for them. So 229 yards is a very impressive number for a running back.
Yeah, I traded for him. I forget exactly what I traded in my Dynasty Fantasy League. I think it was a mix of a bunch of players, but I traded for him and got him because I picked up a team in Dynasty, and he's proven me right in that aspect. And my teams, I believe, is 9-3 or something like that this season. So a pretty good investment on my part. And people were maybe questioning him because he is going to be a free agent this season, and they declined his 5th-year option, but they were just wanted to see what they have. But turns out that was the wrong decision because he'll get paid a lot more than what that 5th-year option could have been.
Yeah, and I mean, even other teams are probably like, maybe we want Josh Jacobs on our team. So I mean, a lot could happen there. And so this next one's fun because I don't think I've ever seen this before. A quarterback and a running back are the next two. Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders are 107 yards and 143 yards. Miles Sanders with 2 touchdowns and Jalen Hurts with a 9.2 average. That's, I mean, 17 carries, Jalen Hurts, and 17 times. I mean, that's an athletic quarterback right there. I mean, they won 40-33 versus Green Bay, and Green Bay has been struggling to stop the run. I think we all predicted that to happen with the run, but Miles Sanders impressed as well. What do you think about Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders?
The Packers didn't really have a QB spy. I felt like they didn't game plan for Jalen Hurts to run the ball like that so well, and that's something you have to consider when you're facing Jalen Hurts, and that's the beauty, and that's why he's such a good quarterback. People make fun of quarterbacks for running the ball, calling them running backs and stuff, but it's the name of the game, and he does it well. And I think if he avoids getting hit and stuff, he's a big guy. He's big enough to avoid getting injured and avoid too much wear and tear, especially with 17 carries. It didn't look like he got hit that much in the game. But yeah, the Eagles had more rushing yards than the Packers had total yards, 353, I believe, total yards. So that was just amazing.
So how nervous do you think Eagles fans are, and even the coaches, when Jalen Hurts balls out and passes the line of scrimmage with the ball in his hand, and he has the opportunity to get hit? Your franchise quarterback is putting his physicality on the line to make plays, but he makes the plays. Like you said, he's a big guy, so he can handle it. But I fear that one of these days he's going to get hit a little wrong, and you lose your franchise quarterback because of his moment.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that can happen. QBs get hit a lot. They are more protected in the pocket, obviously, in terms of sacks and stuff. You can't sack the QB too hard, but people do get injured off sacks and such. You just got to avoid getting hit as much as possible. You got to sometimes the extra yardage isn't really worth it. I know Josh Allen has the same type of play style when he runs the ball. So you just got to know when to do it, when not to do it. If it's in the first quarter and you're trying to go for the extra yard or two and you're getting hit like that might not be worth it. But I mean, when you're putting up points like this, when it's productive like this, I don't think any coach is thinking that.
Okay, yeah. Then the next two are James Conner with his loss against the Chargers, 120 yards, and Chuck with his win against Tampa Bay, 116 yards and 1 touchdown.
Let's go.
And so for receivers, Zay Jones is on top with 11 receptions and 145 yards with 13.2 average in his win versus Baltimore. So
crazy.
Zay Jones, I think that's the first time I've actually seen him in the top 10 for a week. I think that's the most receptions he's gotten all year too. And he definitely showed up, and it was a big factor in that win against Baltimore. He had 0 touchdowns, but he got to the red zone, and the ability was there. And I think that he is showing up, and I think that this is a guy that you want to keep developing as a receiver. And I think that this is very important on paper to prove that maybe Trevor Lawrence is better than we thought, and he's getting better, and the team altogether is just becoming a better team because Zay Jones, someone who just came up from the bottom, is doing this well. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking at his game log now. That's his second ever 100-plus yard game. Okay. So that his first one came against the Colts week 17 of last season. So, I mean, not expected from Zay Jones, but Trevor Lawrence found him. He was burning the Ravens defense. And every time I was watching this game pretty closely, and every time you looked up, Zay Jones was catching the ball, getting a nice gain. He didn't get a touchdown, but 11 receptions and 145 yards. That's ridiculous. And when you're above Justin Jefferson in a stat, props to you. So.
Right, yeah. And speaking of Justin Jefferson, he is second of 9 receptions, 139 yards, but he does have a touchdown. So in his longest was 30 that amazing 37-yard catch right on the sideline. It was beautiful throw by Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson, I think he deserves a better quarterback. Kirk Cousins is mediocre. He's okay. But, I mean, what if Justin Jefferson had a different quarterback? Like, what kind of numbers that he could be putting up? Or it could be a connection with Kirk Cousins. I think that chemistry might have a lot to do with that. What do you think? Chemistry or that?
I think chemistry is pretty big in this too. And I don't think Kirk Cousins is just a QB to shove off. I think he can put up numbers when he needs to. Obviously, he's not I wouldn't consider him a lead among the top quarterbacks in the NFL, but I do think he would put up probably similar numbers. I mean, he's averaging 96.5 yards per game in his career, which at this point is the most in NFL history. Obviously, he's only a few seasons in, but I mean, he's producing like one of the best wide receivers ever. So they have some sort of chemistry going. You can't knock it. So, I mean, he just has crazy games. So.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. And I think Kirk Cousins is better because he has a receiver like Jefferson. Same thing like when Stafford had Calvin Johnson. Something sort of like that. I think that there's that kind of connection.
That makes sense. There. Yeah, and then when Cousins had Stephon Diggs too.
Yeah, that's right.
Adam Thielen involved too. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see Kirk Cousins with no wide receivers, but that's not how you want to set up your quarterback. So
right, no, for sure. Number 3, Amon-Ra St. Brown. David Morazzo commented, Amon-Ra has been so good. Nobody can guard him this year. As Lions, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. That was, I mean, just picking him up and bringing him in, and then just like with the injuries, he started really early. He already made plays, and we weren't even expecting that. He came up from the bottom, and now he's one of the best receivers in the league. Yeah. And the loss against Buffalo Thursday, 9 receptions, 122 yards, 13.6 average, 1 touchdown. So Amon-Ra St. Brown was there. He was open whenever he needed to be. Jared Goff got him the ball, and I think that he has the athleticism, the ability to get open, to get separation from the secondary, to get separation from anybody. And I think that gives Goff a lot of opportunities to pass to him in the end zone, down the field, anywhere. Like, he's like, oh, none of my receivers are open. Let's just throw it to St. Brown because he most likely is.
Yeah, you can't say it any better from words coming from a Lions fan. So I don't think that's I don't think it's biased at all, because I think everybody would agree with you there. He's phenomenal. So
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking maybe top 5 receivers in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Number 4, T. Higgins, win against Tennessee 2016, 7 receptions, 114 yards and a touchdown. And then Chris Godwin in the loss at Cleveland, 110 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, Chris Godwin's looking like his old self. 12 receptions, 110 yards, and when Mike Evans couldn't necessarily pull it together in the game. So Chris Godwin was definitely the number 1 wide receiver, and it's nice to have a couple different to choose from, like the Bengals do have when Jamar Chase is out. T. Higgins will step up, and he's capable of being a wide receiver 1 on any team. It just so happens that he's with Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase. It's one of the best wide receiver trios in the NFL. Maybe if the best.
Yeah, I might have to agree with you.
Yeah. unless you count Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as a trio. That's all you really need in that offense. But
it's true. I mean, they've been offensively they've been doing great. Defense. So leading in total tackles. I know last week we had a discussion about tackles, how that's really not a reliable stat. So we'll just go through real quick. Foye, am I saying this right? Foyesad
Oluokun. I don't know.
Oluokun, something like that. And the 13 solo tackles, 5 assists, 18 total tackles, and then Jordan Brooks, 16 total tackles, Jack Sanborn, Caden Ellis, and Rashaan Evans. So we don't have to get too into that.
Yeah.
I might take this section out, or maybe sort it by sacks or something.
I mean, when you have a lot of tackles, that's pretty cool. I mean, 18 tackles is a lot in a game, so obviously you're getting places. But as a whole, I think we talked about it last week. I think I'm looking at the defense as a whole. When you're getting that many tackles, it's not necessarily a good thing. So maybe like tackles for loss, stuffs. That's those types of stats when you're getting them out of line of scrimmage or getting them behind the line. That's pretty big as well, or forced fumbles as well. So
yeah, and we have tackles. the narrative against tackles, but if you watch Foyesad Oluokun in the game, he actually made impact plays. So these weren't only tackles; these were impact tackles, and that's a lot of reason why Jacksonville ended up winning that game.
Yeah, and that's why Brian likes Pro Football Focus and stuff so much. That's why we bring out the scores in that regards, because they do kind of take that all in. And people say that their grading system's off. It is a little subjective. They have a certain system. But when you go through each play and try to grade them, I think that's the way you should try to do it. So it's hard to put it in a numbers instance, but they do the best they can. So
we'll have to for David, we'll have to get a nice coverage stat for linebackers.
Pro Football Reference does a pretty good job of that in terms of advanced defensive stats, and we can try to categorize it by linebackers and see which ones have I know passer rating, like lowest passer rating allowed, completion
like
percentage allowed, stuff like that. So we can try to add that in the future as well.
So that's the week leaders. So Jimmy, if you want have some stats to talk about, some impact stats.
Let's put a few. I'll just name a few off the bat. The Bengals, they haven't allowed a second half touchdown in 8 of their 11 games. I mentioned this in our power rankings draft yesterday. So that just shows that their defense steps up, makes the adjustments when they need to, and doesn't let their offense down in the second half. So for the next one, Patrick Mahomes, he has 38 games of 300 plus passing yards, which is the most in a QB's first 7 seasons in the NFL. He's only played 74 games, which is less than 5 seasons of games. So that's really good. That's basically what's that? I think that's exactly, or it's a little under half of his or a little over half of his games. He has 300 plus yards, which is just insane.
Is that an NFL record? I feel like that's on the verge of being an NFL record.
Yeah, in terms of career, or just that's and in the first 7 seasons, that's the best. Yeah,
and in the first 5 seasons. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then one more, Yannick Ngakoue. He has 8 plus sacks now in each of his first 7 seasons. And the names that I found on this list, absolutely ridiculous, that I've also done that. Reggie White, Aaron Donald, Derek Thomas, DeMarcus Ware.
Wow. So he's Yannick, like up there with those names. That's awesome.
He's been productive for his first 7 seasons. That's not something to joke about. He had a couple sacks on Monday Night Football that got him there this season. He still has some time to play. So he definitely gets to the quarterback. There were a couple other names I don't have on the top of my head that did it prior to 1982, but that's just the official numbers.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive.
But I'll stop with those stats for now. But
okay, cool. No, I that's interesting though. I love to see that, like the overall of everything.
Right.
So the leading passer, the passing yards stayed the same. Nothing changed. It's the same as last week. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, and then Justin Herbert. Not much to talk about here. It's the same as last week. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. Patrick Mahomes not only has the most pass yards and touchdowns, but also the best passer rating out of the top 5. That's impressive. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is definitely going to make it at least to the AFC Championship, where he's probably going to take on Josh Allen. I know we've seen worse upsets in postseason, so I don't want to call that yet, because it's just still professional football. So Joe Burrow's still there, Tom Brady's still there, and Justin Herbert. So everything stayed the same.
Yeah, notable Tua's missing, obviously, because he missed those games with a concussion. He does have the best pass rating in the NFL right now. He'd be in the top 5 for sure if he was there. I mean, Tyreek Hill is and Jalen Waddle up there in receiving yards, so he would be up here as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow makes his way up there, even with those missed games.
Right.
Because of the way that he's producing.
Yeah, for sure. That could easily happen. He's an MVP candidate, and then Jalen Hurts, he gets a bunch of rushing yards too. So, passing yards, obviously, another flawed stat, but I think it's just interesting stats. You don't have to take everything exactly for passing yards, but I mean, looking at these 5 players, some of the best young talent, and you got the old guy at number 4 right there, Thomas Brady at 45, still slinging it around, but. If you look at his attempts,
the GOAT, if you will.
Yeah. If you look at his attempts as well, he has 60 more attempts than like Joe Burrow and a few more. So when you look at that, just look at the yards per attempt. Obviously, him and Herbert are a little further down, and Patrick Mahomes has been more efficient with the football, throwing the football. So it's just taking all the stats and combining them to make your narrative or whatever you want to kind of drive. So,
right, yeah. Because what I was gonna do was take the pass yards, and then I was gonna kind of bring Tua in, and then like compensate for what he lost, so we could like make a hypothetical on where he'd be if he wouldn't have missed those games, and he would have been 3rd place. After I did that math, he would have been 3rd place after Josh Allen.
Yeah, and then you could also look at yards per game, but. Then obviously like Tua would be top, but he hasn't played as many games, so that kind of favors him. So you just got to look at everything. You got to look at a little bit of everything. So when you have yards per game, you have to have like a minimum number of games, which is always arbitrary, I feel like. But yeah, there's some fun stats over there.
Yeah, it's cool.
I feel like I look at these stats every day just to see what's happening.
Me too. I like all the numbers. It's a really good way of deciding like who to watch, who to look out for, maybe who to pick up in your fantasy, especially DFS. Stats are huge in DFS. So if you see someone producing, it's going to say like Joe Burrow, you're gonna be like, I'm going to pick a quarterback for my DFS. He's going to be who I'm going to pick because he puts up numbers, and these numbers are on paper and you can see it. So you have kind of a visual.
Yeah, and in Dynasty and just regular fantasy football, I mean, the best ability is availability. That's a cliche, but you hear that everywhere. You can't really predict it. You can't really be like, oh, this player's back because he's getting injured. I don't think injury prone is necessarily a thing unless it's specific injuries. But the best ability is availability. So looking at these guys that play in every game, they're having some of the best seasons. So
yeah. So that's the passing yards. Jimmy, let's lay down some more stats for me.
Let's do it. I got you. The 49ers, I think this stat's kind of wild. The 49ers haven't allowed a second half point. They haven't allowed any points in the second half in 4 straight games.
4 games.
Absolutely ridiculous. And I can look it up real quick who they've played. I know they played the Saints just this past week. But I think they've also played some decent offenses. They play the Dolphins this upcoming week, so that's looking to possibly, I assume, change. If it doesn't,
I think the streak might break against Miami.
Yeah, but they've played the Cardinals, who haven't been the best this year, but I still think they do have playmakers on offense. The Chargers and the Rams. So those, I mean, if you go back to last season, you'd be like, wow, that's an amazing group of guys. But every one of those teams has a playmaker on that team that they've stopped from getting a point in the second half. Even the Saints have Alvin Kamara and some playmakers on that side of the ball, but they're playing very well.
Yeah, going into the season, I wasn't expecting the defense to be so dominant. Right. That's definitely a big factor in how they're winning games. But that's a really interesting stat. I saw that on Instagram, and I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah. David said that the streak is over this weekend. Yeah,
I think it might be,
unless something crazy happens and Mike McDaniels forgets how to coach. I don't think that's going to happen. He's going to come up with a way to at least get a field goal or two, or a couple touchdowns probably. So another stat, Josh Jacobs. I'm sure everybody's seen this everywhere. He's one of 5 players in NFL history to have, or one of 5 running backs to have 300 plus yards from scrimmage in a game. And he's the for only one to have 225 plus rushing yards and 75 plus receiving yards. So he on both sides of the ball. You can see it here. He's leading the league in rushing yards. We've already talked about him a little bit, but he's playing lights out, which is absolutely what you want to see. I mean, that's just crazy numbers. After I saw that 80-yard touchdown run, I was like, okay, how many yards did he end up having? That's where my mind goes when stuff like that happens. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very impressive. As you can see right here, 240-plus rushes. That's not very many, but 40-plus rush, not easy to get in this league. So seeing at least 2 of them is pretty impressive. 6 20-plus runs, 9 touchdowns total, 216 attempts, which isn't even as much as Derrick Henry, and he has more yards. So that's even more impressive. The more yards and less attempts is always better than the actual number of that you're getting.
Right.
So to see that is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
There's actually a new name on the top 5 rushers. Miles Sanders wasn't on this list last week. So he just made this list. 900 yards, 177 attempts, and 8 touchdowns. Then we have Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, the Eagles have always been in the Eagles fans, I feel like, always want a different running back. But Miles Sanders, he puts up numbers, and they do have a very good offensive line in pass protection and in rushing offense, which helps tremendously when you're running behind him. But 177 attempts, which is a lot less than all those guys, and he's hit 900 yards already, and 8 touchdowns. So he's producing everywhere. He's making fantasy owners like me happy. I feel like, I mean, I'm in a lot of leagues, so obviously I end up having every player in some capacity. I just tend to have a little more stock in him. So it's been nice to see him overproduce on his value that I got him on.
Oh, yeah. So I'm missing the yards per attempt on this stat, though. But I guess if you did the math, you could average it out. The average is... Oh, no, that's not. 687. That's not right. Okay. And anyway, so yeah, the rushing pretty straightforward. Josh Jacobs took the lead, and Miles Sanders to the top 5. And then you got Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Saquon Barkley, which has just been so consistent as running backs. They've been having good numbers every week. Multiple 100-yard games and multiple touchdowns. So,
yep, the Raiders should have extended him. Derrick Henry, he gets rushing yards every season. So. He's been awesome. All right, let me see. I think I have. Do I have a receiving stat? I said Justin Jefferson, most yards per game in NFL history. Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson's kind of random. That's because I saw him catch another 50-yard pass in their game against the Jaguars. But he's caught a 50-yard pass from 13 different quarterbacks. So they're just slinging it around.
Can you name all the quarterbacks?
No, I cannot.
No?
But no, I cannot. But that'd be very interesting to see some of the weird quarterbacks that are on that list. I wonder if he could name all the quarterbacks. Is what I would ask him. If maybe
I kind of want to know now. I kind of want to ask him that now. Yeah. if anyone has connections to Deshaun Jackson, let's get him on the podcast.
Just let us know. I'm sure somebody listening right now. I'm sure David. I'm sure you have access to Deshaun Watson or Deshaun Jackson's. Sorry. Deshaun Jackson's cell phone number. So just let us know. All right. Cool. And then one more, Christian Watson. He has 6 touchdown passes in the past 3 games, which is up to par with a lot of these guys that are on here, which is awesome. He has 12 receptions as well. So 12 receptions, 265 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So half of his catches are going for touchdowns.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
In the past 3 games, yeah.
Right. I mean, Aaron Rodgers needed that too after losing Devontae Adams. He needed. So David said he's not answering.
Oh, jeez, dang it.
Well, a minute. maybe he'll call back.
Yeah.
So speaking of receiving, Tyreek Hill is in the lead still. No surprise there. 87 receptions, 1,233 yards, only 4 touchdowns. But he definitely can catch. He can put up yards. get down to the end zone to let Jalen Waddle score. He is leading in touchdowns for the Dolphins, but he didn't make the top 5 this week. Stephon Diggs is second, Justin Jefferson third, Austin Eckler fourth, Cooper Kupp fifth, and I don't think Cooper Kupp's going to stay there very long because he is still injured. So that's too bad.
Yeah.
Definitely
I think he's still like in the. I think Cooper Kupp's near the top 10 or in the top 10 in receiving yards as well. Still,
I'm actually just realizing that this is sorted by receptions, not yards, and that's
correct.
That's why this is happening.
Well, here we go. I can pull up receiving yards real quick.
Okay, yeah, me too.
And name them off. Right now.
I can use NFL.com stats.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's number 1. Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Devon. I mean, exactly what you'd predict for the most part.
So Jalen Waddle is up there then, right?
Yes, yeah, he's 5th.
He was.
So 2 Dolphins wide receivers in the top 5. That's insane. And then we have Chris Olave down there at 9, I believe.
Really, Olave's down? Okay.
Yeah. So, or he's I think he's 11th. So he's 11th in receiving yards, which is really good, especially for a rookie wide receiver with Andy Dalton as your QB.
Cool.
So yeah, T. Higgins is up there. T. Higgins has surpassed Jamar Chase, obviously. Terry McLaurin, Travis Kelce is 6th. He's right up there for a tight end. That's really good. And then Cooper Kupp is 12th. So he's still hanging around up there. Yeah, Terry McLaurin as well, and AJ Brown are up there. But yeah, Austin Eckler, he gets a lot of receptions. 80 receptions is huge, especially 12 weeks into a season. That's absolutely insane. Obviously, his yards aren't up to par with everybody, but you can't expect that much when you start from behind the line of scrimmage sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, Olave has been. He kind of has like an Amon-Ra St. Brown vibe, where he's always open. He can definitely create separation. If anyone has him on their dynasty league, good for them, because he's going to be important in New Orleans offense.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have a new stat that we haven't done before: scoring, and it's sorted by total touchdowns. The Eagles and Chiefs are tied with the most total touchdowns. Then the Lions, Bengals, and Bills are tied with the second most total touchdowns on 39 and 34. And the Lions actually have the most 2-point conversions at 4, and the Chiefs have the most receiving touchdowns, and the Eagles most rush touchdowns.
Huh? Yeah, none of that really surprises me too much, but
you put this into perspective, and you can kind of see like the distribution of the scoring here, like because the Eagles with 21 touchdowns, but the Chiefs have 29 receiving touchdowns and only 9 rush touchdowns. So you can definitely see like these teams' strengths, like whether they have more strength in scoring offensively, if it's rushing or passing. Right. So I don't know. I think that's interesting seeing the total touchdowns, because touchdown. At the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do, is score touchdowns. The Eagles and Chiefs have been the best at that.
Yeah, and most touchdowns do come inside the red zone. So kind of looking at the red zone offense a little too, you can kind of predict what they're kind of going with, what they're more comfortable with. Obviously, the Chiefs, they have a lot more I'm sure they get a lot more touchdowns outside of the red zone, but their rushing attack hasn't been the best in terms of getting in the end zone, as you can see.
Right. And then I have another one down. So I've sorted third down, because to me, I think getting third downs is one of the most important things to do as a football team in this league. Yeah. Because if you don't make third down, you put away, you kick a field goal, and that's points that you're not scoring. So I sorted by third downs made, and the Bears are actually first. This is a surprise to me. 162 third down attempts, and 72 of those were successful.
That's definitely interesting. I wonder if it's more so the fact that they don't do the best on first and second down, so they have so many attempts. Like the Chargers also have a lot of attempts, so they don't get first downs on first and second, so they go for it on third. But hey, if you look at the third down conversion percentage, I'm sure it's not as bad as some other teams.
Yeah, for sure. And that's in 726 scrimmage plays. So it's a pretty high percentage of third downs per scrimmage plays. So that's a good point. That's why I think the stat is a hit or miss. It's because they made their 72 third downs, but they've also had to try to convert 162 times.
Right. And it's one of those stats.
The Colts are 27.5 average in punting.
That's so random.
It's very random.
That's very surprising.
I thought it was interesting.
That's punt returns, correct?
Punt returns. Yes. 19 returns for 523 yards. They're leading the league in punt return average. I found that interesting. The longest was the 89-yard return, and there's 13 returns over 20 yards. So the Falcons, Lions, Patriots, and Ravens are next. The thing about punting, though, is return a punt 19 yards. That means your defense stopped the offense. That means your defense is doing well, and then you're putting your offense in a better position. That's why I think that was a very interesting thing to talk about because it's not really talked about that much. And that's what I wanted to do in this podcast, was talk about things that nobody talks about.
Right. And in terms of the Colts, they obviously haven't been capitalizing on those plays that the special teams have been giving them. We did see that Isaiah Rodgers had been returning a lot of our kicks and stuff before, and then Dallas Flowers came in. I don't know if you saw that at the start of the second half on Monday Night Football, and he came in and had a 80-something yard return. We got a touchdown there after that. I mean, there's not much else was happening, but that's why you need to be good on all three phases, because you never know what can happen, and especially for the brand punting, when you kick it inside the 5, that's hard for teams to get out of because there's not as much space to work with.
Right, sure. I think what I want to bring onto this show too is how often do teams score after forcing a punt?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I think that'd be really interesting to see which teams, because punt and you don't score, it's like your defense is like, what the hell, man? Like, we did all this work to get the ball back and you can't score. It's like,
right.
Or touches the ball and then fumbles at the next play. Like, it's not.
Or touchdowns off of turnovers. I know that stat is in basketball a lot. Points off the fast break and points off a turnover. So looking at that, that's basically, when you get a turnover, that's a fast break, because most of the time you're in decent field position, a lot better than what you'd be in a kickoff return at the 25, because most of the time it's a touchback. But getting points off of turnovers when your defense plays so well, instead of just going 3 and out and the defense is like, man, I got to go back out there and we didn't get anything to show for it. That's tough, and that's demoralizing, especially when you have a close game or you're down by a lot looking to make a comeback. So.
Yeah, for sure. I know the Detroit Lions deal with that a lot, and Indianapolis dealt with that a lot on Monday night.
Woo!
Especially in the first half. The second half they did a little bit better, but in that first half there were just too many. We had
0 yards in the first quarter, but that's
really bad.
Whatever. Yeah, that's not the best. Better than negative.
Yeah. Speaking of defense turnovers, there is no surprise here that the Eagles are leading in interceptions with 15, 1 interception touchdown, and 131 interception yards. Then we got the Bills, Steelers, Patriots, and Jets. But Bradbury, how many interceptions does Bradbury have?
Oh dear Lord, I'm not too sure, but I know. I just posted
4 or 5.
Yeah, he's allowing the fewest or the lowest passer rating with players above 50 plus targets this season, and he's up there with passes defended as well. I mean, he's playing lights out. And then quick shout out to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who has I believe is leading the league in interceptions right now, unless he's got surpassed this week. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has already surpassed this year in interceptions what he had in the previous few years.
So Bradbury of the Eagles does have 3 interceptions this season. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
But yeah. Gardner Johnson, he has 4, I think, right? I think he has 4.
I think he has like 6.
Oh, I must have missed one. He's good on catching. A lot of these cornerbacks, I feel like, are getting helped by their receiving coaches, getting helped by the receivers on offense, because some of these interceptions these guys can make, like, they look like wide receiver catches, and I think that's a really important thing to have if you're in the secondary, if you're a defensive back.
Yeah, Chauncey Gardner has 6. He had 5 in his previous 3 seasons, and he has 8 passes defended this season. He's playing very well, and he is a safety He's playing safety for the Eagles, so he's a versatile player on the defensive side of the ball, and he's getting the ball, which is helping. But he also has Darius Slay back there. I mean, he has so much help back there too. Their defensive backs are extraordinary. And then they're getting Jordan Davis back on the defensive line. That's irrelevant to this stat, but he's going to be back in practice. So that's going to help them with their rushing defense, which in turn helps with the passing defense. It's
I feel like the Eagles are still going to get better. They're not even bad. So that's saying a lot that they're getting better. I mean, I don't think they have a ceiling. I think they're just going up until they're like they can't go up anymore.
That's perfect. I do have a stat. They started 10-1. The last team to start 10-1 or better and go on to win the Super Bowl. Do you want to guess who that is? Started 10-1 or better and went on to end up winning the Super Bowl.
The Patriots.
It was the Eagles.
The Eagles.
Yeah, they had a pretty good start with Carson Wentz, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
That was the Nick Foles Super Bowl. I knew that.
Yeah, I'm not meaning to jinx it, but that did happen. So that's all I'm gonna. I'm not an announcer, so I can't jinx anything. So
right, true. Like the Detroit kick. We don't have to talk about that.
Okay, I wasn't gonna. Yeah.
So I want to bring up next gen stats. Nothing changed from week 7 when Kenneth Walker hit 22 miles per hour on a 74-yard rush touchdown. That's fast. Kenneth Walker, really a rookie. He played for Michigan State. Go Green.
The young legs.
And then Desmond King, still from week 5, had the longest play with 123 yards on a 29-yard interception. Brandon Jones still holds the fastest sack with 2.13 seconds in week 1. And improbable completions match to Devontae Parker. Is a 7.4% completion percentage.
I love
week
that.
3, 25-yard reception. So all the next gen stats have stayed mostly the same. But I'll be checking on those every week to see who can beat that fastest speed, because that's a stat that I really like, because that's really fast.
He's got the young legs.
Yeah, he's definitely gonna be taking over the league in the future.
No doubt.
So, I'm out of stats. So, is there any other stats that you have to throw at us?
Yeah, I do have a few. The Cowboys Giants on Thanksgiving, most watched regular season game ever. 42 million viewers. That's what happens when you have a game in the middle of people taking naps and chilling after Thanksgiving lunch or their meal or whenever they had it. And when you have the Cowboys, that's in big markets like the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants, people are going to be watching. The Cowboys always put up numbers. You can see that because they didn't flex out the Cowboys and the Colts, which surprised me a little bit, especially since they flexed out the Chiefs and the Broncos. So, and the week after that. But very interesting.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that is very interesting. I like that.
Let's see. I could have mentioned this earlier, but the Saints had gone 332 games in a row without a shutout, which I think wasn't even one of the longest streaks in the NFL. But the 49ers stopped them, so their last shutout was in 2001. That's unheard of for some teams, like the Colts or like the Lions. I'm sure they've been shut out very recently compared to that. But very interesting in terms of that. So. Let's see.
That's a long time ago. That's a lot of years.
I mean, I was 4 years old. Now
I was I was 5.
There you go. Yeah. So and then players to reach 12 sacks in each of the first 2 seasons. We have Micah Parsons. We have Aldon Smith. I love hearing his name in stats every now and then. He was dominant for a short little while, and then Reggie White. Reggie White's in every stat category or sack category. But Micah Parsons, he has 6 games a season with 2+ sacks, 5 games with no sacks. I've said this a million times. If he gets 1 sack, he's going to get you again. So just be careful. He's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And he follows me on Twitter, so I have to respect him. He's a Twitter follower, so much appreciated, Micah. 2001 was also against us. Man. Y'all, Saints don't want to play the 49ers. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Let's see. Wide receivers. This is a fun little list as well. Wide receivers with 10,000 plus receiving yards and 75 plus
Whoa.
receiving touchdowns in the first 9 seasons. Mike Evans, pretty good. He's on pace to get 1,000 receiving yards again, so that stat's going to come out eventually, hopefully. Jerry Rice, Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Marvin Harrison, Randy Moss, all
you're just naming Hall of Famers at this point.
I can keep naming Hall of Famers if you want me to do. But yeah, I said Mike Evans, so I think you just called him a Hall of Famer from that. From that. So I mean, he has a Super Bowl and everything. So I think Mike Evans is on. I think with his consistency and stuff, he'll be in the Hall of Fame.
If he stays healthy, yeah, I think he still has a lot of production left, but he has been dealing with some injuries. Just small injuries. He's not really out for like multiple games. He'll be out for a game and come back, and then he'll be out for another. It hasn't been very consistent, but we'll see if he stays healthy, because then I could see him being as hot like Jerry Rice or Calvin Johnson, especially with Tom Brady throwing. But I don't know how much longer he's going to be throwing. So we'll see.
And then a couple just fun stats. Kenneth Walker has 9 rushing touchdowns in his last 7 games. So he's getting in the end zone even when he's not getting yards.
Is that the most from a rookie? Do you know? Because I feel like that might be
this season.
This season.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
I believe so.
I was going to say Breece Hall would be up there if he didn't get hurt. Yeah.
And then we have Russell Wilson, who hit his 300th career passing touchdown.
Poor guy.
He hit his 300th career passing touchdown, and his birthday just happened. And there's reports coming out that he had half of his team show up. It's not really a big deal. It's just random news stories that I'm like, why is this news? Half his team showed up. That's a lot of people. Kenneth Walker is nice, dude.
Walker is very nice. Yeah.
It's people
I
in
just
Dynasty.
Picked him up on my Dynasty. I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, people in Dynasty were like Breece Hall, and people were going for the number 1 spot. But if you had the number 2 or number 3 spot and were able to grab Kenneth Walker, you're just as happy right now. I did trade.
And in their defense, remember who was starting ahead of them? Chris Carson, who retired, and Rashad Penny, who got hurt. So without that happening, I mean, Kenneth Walker got his cards handed to him exactly how he wanted, and now he's producing. So I think, Rashad Penny's injury and Chris Carson's retirement was the best thing that could have ever happened to Seattle and happened to Kenneth Walker. I'm a Walker fan. I'm a Michigan State fan, so I'm really happy to see him doing as good as he's been doing.
Right, and I did trade for Breece Hall in a Dynasty League that I have no shot in winning in, so hopefully Breece Hall comes back and shows off as a running back 1, because he's a star. So it's unfortunate for the Jets, but hopefully Michael Carter and James Robinson can work off the workload for the New York team. But yeah, that's all the stats I have.
Okay.
We shared a lot of fun stats today, so
yes, we did.
Yeah.
So
any fun?
The passing yards go up, or if someone enters the top 5 in rushing, receiving, or if the scoring changes, we'll see. So next week we'll go over the weekly leaders, see what happens this week. Maybe Mike White will be number 1. Maybe Russell Wilson will finally make it. Maybe he'll change his ways. Maybe
Micah Parsons will have a couple more sacks too. He's playing the Colts, so.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna happen for sure.
That'll be fun.
That'll be fun.
He will get a sack.
Good luck to your Colts.
Thank
I mean,
you.
It's a high spread. I mean, the Cowboys are definitely favored in that one. I'd say maybe you could bet the underdogs, but I wouldn't. The Colts are not a bad team. I think they just have some things to figure out. Jeff Saturday, I'm a fan of Saturday, so I think that'll be.
Yeah, he's a good dude. So
I don't see him hiring him. Do you think they're going to hire him? I mean, maybe if he wins 5 in a row now, but I mean, is he a good coach? He definitely knows how to coach, but is he a good coach?
I have no idea. I honestly, if I had to bet on it, I'd say no. I don't think.
Okay.
Jeff Saturday will end up being the coach, but it's very hard to say, because I never in a million years would have thought. Like the other day, I was like, wow, Jeff Saturday's our coach. Because I mean, when I was a kid, we saw him at a Texas Roadhouse in Indiana at one point when they were leaving. They had a whole room blocked off, and he was the star center with Peyton Manning and such. And now he's our head coach, which is weird. I don't want him to be the head coach. I like him too much.
Okay, yeah,
that makes sense.
Well, I want him to coach a Super Bowl because I have his football card, and I'll be able to sell that football card if he.
Oh, there you go.
We'll see. So, hey, do you want to buy it? I mean, I'll start
it.
taking offers. Okay, cool.
We'll talk about it.
No, but so this is 11 Yards Podcast. I think we're just gonna end there. We're 50 minutes now. We go over stats, numbers. That's exactly what we did. So, Jimmy, it was nice having you on. It was nice hanging out with you, talk about football. It's the middle of the week. There's no football on, so we gotta find something to do. So that'll do it for week 12. We'll see you tomorrow for our 30 minutes of football live Q&A show at 4 p.m. Pacific. That's 7 p.m. Eastern. This has been 11 Yards Podcast presented by Legit Football.
Bills Patriots tomorrow.